You'll hear that. You could touch the table.
Just don't hit it.
Alex will scold you if you hit the
And
table.
understandably so. It won't happen. It's the last time it happens.
You can like fake hit the table.
Yeah, just like it. And then pause. No sound. Magic of film.
We are live. Nick Walker here on Change Everything Live with your host, Andrae Bailey. I'm supposed to like look in the camera and say that, but I feel very self-esteem deficient when I do that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, hello everyone, please like me a lot.
Yeah.
So I can't
No,
really do
we're
that.
here.
We're here in the zone.
Yeah.
Nick Walker, Aaron Burr in studio
That's
today.
what they tell me.
From the cast of Hamilton, the touring cast of Hamilton. Nick, thanks for coming on, man.
Thank you for having me, man. Seriously,
You've come
here.
a long way to be on the show, but we're so excited to have you. So let's just get right into it. What's it like being the man, Aaron Burr, in this? What is a cultural phenomenon, Hamilton? This show that really has redefined maybe Broadway and the genre. What's it like playing this character?
Oh, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's the kind of thing that you just have to. I was actually talking on the way here in the car. I think that for so many of us in the arts, whether that be TV, film, stage, whatever it is, you get to a place where you realize that auditioning is your job, right? It's so rare that you're going to have a show that, number one, hits this hard, will last this long, even whether that's a theater show like this or a TV show, whatever it is. So to kind of have hit the trifecta of a show that hits this hard, lasts this long, and is really good, and this role, which I can say as somebody who, I understudied the role for about a year and a half on Broadway, and then now I'm doing the role on the road. It still is challenging. It is still every day that you do it. It's just like, oh my God, I don't know where it's going to come from, because it's just you're going a lot of places with it.
So what was the genesis of you with this project with Lynn, with the people around Lynn Manuel? Like, how did you? Because you talk about it as though you've been around this production for years. Yeah. How did you get connected with Hamilton, and how did you wind up now in the position of playing what a lot of people would say is the lead, even if it's not the lead character, the ultimate protagonist, if you will, of the show? How did you get to a place where? What's your journey to Aaron Burr?
Started years ago, so you have to understand. I think that one of the misconceptions about Broadway is that because these shows are, every year you have a new season, so kind of people who aren't in that, who aren't on the ground floor of it, kind of assume that, they put these shows up in a year, 2 years, you just write it. Just like Breaking Bad, Vince Gilligan literally had this thing charted out when he was writing the X-Files, right? It takes
like a decade.
Like a decade ago. And this show took 8 years for Lynn to write. So he was, it started as an album, right? He at first was writing it as an album, and then the thing with the Kennedy Center happened, and he showed, and they were like, well, let's see if we can make this really a show, and really, and what ended up happening was they first started as, I'm sure people who know the show will know, as the Hamilton Mixtape. And the Hamilton Mixtape was the title that the show had when it was down at the Public Theater, off Broadway in New York. And so I was auditioning for it back in workshops.
When it was the Mixtape.
When it was the Mixtape. And I remember, I went in for it, golly, 3 times. At first, I auditioned with the King's songs, King George, and then it was Washington's songs, and then I think I sang Dear Theodosia, and nothing ever happened with it. And I remember just keep going in, and like a bunch of my friends, because you understand, like the Broadway community is a small community. We all know each other. We're all, we all came up together. So a bunch of my friends started booking it. And I would hear stuff about it here and there, like, oh yeah, we were trying this thing out in the lab today, and I don't know what's, and I'd be like, oh, it sounds amazing, and the material always sounded amazing, but like, you have to understand, like, I didn't think about it. I wasn't like, oh, Hamilton's going to be this big thing. I was just like, okay, it's a thing, and I've auditioned for it, and they clearly is not going to work out for me. And I went away. I was doing Motown on Broadway at the time, and I went away. We closed Motown on Broadway after 3 years, and then I went away to Denver to do a play out there, which is one of my favorite plays I've ever done. And all of a sudden, I'm out there, and like literally 2 weeks before I left for Denver, my buddy Oak, who originated the role of Mulligan Madison, we had gone out for sushi like on 46th Street, And he was telling me, he's like, yeah, man, you know, we're running at the public. I don't know how this thing's going to go. Like, we'll see, you know. And I was like, dude, and said to him what I say to everyone. I was like, dude, don't worry about it. Like, you're going to be fine. Like, you know, these jobs come and go. You're fine. Go to Denver. Literally 3 weeks into rehearsal, my director opens up the front page of the New York Times. It's just Oak's face, just right there. And I literally was like, son of a...
He was Hercules Mulligan.
He was Hercules Mulligan.
In the original show.
In the original cast. Yeah. And this, I mean, this thing had blown up. And it was huge. It was huge. There was no denying it was huge. And, you know, we talked about, you know, wanting to be a hater at first. I hated it. Because it was literally like all, in a very Aaron Burr fashion, all my boys were in this thing. And I was like, okay, so now I got to deal with this. I literally remember writing journal entries.
You literally were not in the room where it happened.
I was not in the room. And I remember writing journal entries like, oh my God, I have to go back to New York. I have to see all their faces everywhere, doing all the award shows and all this bull. And I hated it. I was not a fan. And it was literally just envy, just pettiness. And I remember what changed it for me, the thing, because they kept calling me into audition, like for the first year of the run on Broadway. And I was like, I'm not going to get it. But what changed it for me was I had a friend who was in my show, was in Motown with me when I went back, because we did Motown twice on Broadway. That was a whole thing. And he was like, I was like, dude, they keep calling me in for this hip-hop show. I'm not a hip-hop guy. I grew up listening to the Stones. Like, it's just not my music. And he was like, well, I know you don't like hip-hop, but it's just heightened verse. It's just Shakespeare. And I was a Shakespeare major. And all of a sudden it clicked for me. I was like, well, I know that. And so then I went in and I booked it. So I booked it literally. I joined them right after they had won the Tony.
Okay. So you booked it, meaning they were already recruiting for the next run of the show. They were already.
So what you have to understand is the turnover for the show is big because
Because the gentleman, and forgive me his name, who was originally Aaron Burr, Leslie Odom Jr.
Yep.
He wins that award, and now he's out.
He's doing his thing.
And they don't want to probably have to. His value is such that he can go do a lot of things. Then
he can do
and so then they're always looking for the next. Who's going to be the next Aaron Burr? Who's going to be the next Hamilton? You
have to because they knew they wanted to bring the show to a lot of places. So you don't just need one. Right, you need a bunch of people who can play these roles. And they also, I think that what you have to understand is the show, I think Lynn's genius with writing the show and Tommy's genius with directing the show and Annie's genius with choreographing the show was they were like, let's create a show where just like the character, we are going to put forth a cast of people literally doing the most they can do for 3 hours. Like literally, it's nonstop. It is literally everybody is operating at full tilt boogie for 3 hours, and that's why it's so special.
What you're saying is you're not, for those of you that haven't seen the show, characters are coming into scenes that really they have no business necessarily being in, dancing or participating theatrically, and that's not normal for a production like this.
And not only the amount of time on stage, but look, there are 20,000 words in this show. If this show was a regular musical, it would be, I think somebody calculated it'd be 5 hours long. It is the amount of brain power, the amount of physical power you have to do this show. It's a lot. Like there's a reason I can't go out and party after the show at night. This show wipes you out. So you need to constantly be in search of people because people will get tired. It's just like doing any other, it's like playing a sport. It's like, playing any sport. Your body, if you take care of your body, do everything right, get the massages, go out, do the thing you need to do, it will hold up. But at a certain point, like I'm from Boston, right? Tom Brady's going to get tired. Tom Brady. We bring up Tom Brady 10 minutes in.
Actually, I'm a huge Tom Brady fan.
There you go.
I'm a Michigan guy, we have to love Brady.
We have to get Brady's Brady.
Greatest of all time. Unquestionably.
You can't question it. And that's the thing is, right, everybody gets tired. And so you have to, the turnover for the show is big. So I think that they knew that people, once they hit that first year mark, people were going to start to say, hey.
So as an understudy, they would bring you in and they would say, listen, you're gonna practice this role, one role or multiple roles?
I was multiple roles.
You were multiple roles. And you had to be available, learn all these roles, and then it's like AAA. At some point, you're going to get called up to the show.
Well, with this show, not at some point. At this show, before you even had my first time on Aaron Burr, I hadn't even done the full show yet. I hadn't had a full run. And there was other times, like literally there would be time. I remember one of my favorite times, I was actually on for a different character. And so Brandon Dixon, who had taken over for Leslie after Leslie left, Brandon and I had done Motown together. He's like my big brother. He got hurt in the middle of Act 1. And I was on for another character, and my stage manager called me over in the middle of the show, was like, hey, you're going to go on for Burr, so we need you to go downstairs at the next break, change your costume. Literally, you know that song that Eliza sings, That Would Be Enough?
Yes.
I had That Would Be Enough to change out of my costume, get into Aaron Burr.
And be Aaron Burr.
And
And you had to know all the lines.
Everything.
How did you do?
It was fine.
Okay.
It was crazy because so I have a beard. Brandon doesn't have a beard, so the audience was looking at me like, and you could see them checking the programs like, that's not the guy. What's happening? But it's like it happens all the time. And I think understudies and swings and standbys are the kind of the unsung heroes of this whole thing because things happen, and you got to be ready. And it's kind of the best training you'll ever have.
Yeah. So I got a chance to watch the show here in Orlando. We film here in Orlando for those watching in other markets, and I wanted to be a hater. I hadn't seen the show. I hadn't listened to the soundtrack. Unbelievable. And as someone who's not a Broadway guy, what I'm sitting there thinking the entire time, and maybe I'm just weird, is how do you remember those lines perfectly every show without missing a beat? Is that hard at all? Do you ever, even knowing it like the back of your hand, is there ever a moment where it doesn't click, or is it like second nature?
I'm going to give you a little secret. If you go on your Instagram, even if you were to go on right now and check the hashtag Burr's Corner.
Okay.
Burr's Corner was started by Brandon, and it is the hashtag that we use to record every time we don't remember a line or something messes up.
Ad-lib?
Well, the thing is with this, in a normal play or musical, even on set, you forget a line, maybe you can kind of fake your way through that line because, it's just a line. Nothing's in meter. But in this show, everything is musical. Everything is rapped. So if I forget the line, the music's still going. So it's not only about remembering the line, it's now I got to catch up to the line that's 5 lines ahead of me. So we call it going into the white. It actually happened. I'm not going to call anyone out, but it happened yesterday. One of our actors, literally during one of the bigger songs, my shot in the show, forgot an entire passage of text. And we all feel so bad because we've all been there, and there's nothing you can do to help him. So he's just got to stand there and be like,
he's got to wait.
He's got to wait.
He's got to.
Yeah, or just try to remember it.
But you can't go halfway in. You can't. You have to. You have to reset. Cut and recut,
and that's it. But it's live, so we can't cut nothing. So like you just kind of go. You just kind of go. It
well, I mean,
all the time.
you can't be like, you can't bust in later if it's not in that particular sequence.
You just gotta for the ride, man.
Let's
just no, and like I've just stood. When it happens to me, I just stand there. I just say, okay, great, and then I wait, and then it will eventually come. But like what I've learned to do with this show, I say all my lines every time before I go on stage.
Okay, so you'll be in the back. Your preparation is you'll be in the back, and you'll Mr. Aaron Burr, sir, and you'll go through the whole thing. Now, do you as someone who has to do speeches at times?
Yeah.
Do you think about the guy ahead of you is doing his line? You're coming.
Yeah.
At that point, are you still thinking about your line, or now you're just in the performance?
I think one of the things about acting that is so spectacular is at a certain point it's a tennis match, right? At a certain point you're not worried about the lines, you're just talking, and that's kind of like the golden period that you hope to get to. You hope to get to that place where you're just like, I'm not performing with you. I'm just like it's that classic thing of I forget what movie it was. Dustin Hoffman did with, I think it was like, might have been Laurence Olivier or some older actor of esteem, and Dustin Hoffman was like doing all this prep and all this like amazing like journaling work and like really learning how to get into his character and like bleeding for this character and all this stuff. And he shows up on set, and whoever this older actor was looking at Dustin Hoffman, who's young at the time, and was like sweaty and like gross and just had clearly beat himself up for it. He's like, it's just acting, man. You just show up. You just show up and do the thing. And like it's the truth of it. What we're hoping to do is just be there. It's literally just about being present. So my favorite moments, I was telling you, Joseph, who plays Hamilton, is over this past year, we've become like brothers. And it's honestly like playing with a jazz musician. I know him. I know his rhythms. I know he's going to throw, and we can play. We can try different things. We can just keep it fresh because we're doing this for this is our 9 to 5 now. So how do we make this feel new for every audience who comes in?
So was Joseph, who now plays Hamilton, was he associated with you guys in New York in the very beginning as well?
Joseph's been with Lynn longer because Joseph was he did Lynn's role in the Heights tour.
Wow.
So he's been doing Lynn shows for a decade, and they know him very well. And I think that's kind of the special thing about our team too. You know, when a show gets this big, it can very easily become corporate. But our director Tommy, our whole creative team, they really make a point of this is a family. And granted, like it's a job, but they want you to know that you're taken care of, that they see you, that if you need anything, they're there. And like for instance, my favorite thing that's ever happened on this tour. So Jeffrey Sellers is our producer. Jeffrey Sellers is, in the Broadway world, he is a giant. I mean, this is the man who produced Rent. He's produced most of the Broadway shows that you've heard of. This man has been attached with. And he doesn't need to do anything but just enjoy the fact that he's created these hits. But he comes to our show actually it was in Orlando. And he comes and he throws us this big dinner. And afterwards, he's like, he asked to make a speech to the cast, and he went down the list and he literally pulled out these cue cards. This man had spent the show taking notes of everything that he liked about every single cast member.
Wow.
He's like, Joseph, I really love the way you played such and such scene today. It just taught me something. And it was just like, you ain't got to do that. We're making money for you. You ain't got to do that. None of that. But that's that they care. They actually do care, and they know that kind of environment actually makes for a better show. So it's a really special company to work for.
Yes, you were around Lin-Manuel Miranda and the team from the very beginning. You saw it go from this kind of Broadway phenomenon, insider group, where everyone was going, this is going to be something, to a national, international cultural phenomenon. What is Lin-Manuel Miranda like to be around, to work around? What's he like?
Lin, so I would say that, because I joined them right when Lin was like he had just left the Broadway company, and my friend Javi had just taken over for Lin. Javi was Lin's understudy.
Okay.
Lin is, I think the beauty of Lin is like exactly what you see in interviews is exactly who he is. He's a genius. Lin is incredibly smart. He is a pop culture nerd, as am I, as are most people involved in this show. But like he knows, and it shows in the show, the amount of references to not only musical theater, but just hip hop life are just, there's so many Easter eggs hidden in the show. It's not even funny. And that's Lin. His brain is just, and it actually speaks to the entire team. I think one of the things that I found, I told Jeffrey this, our producer, I told him that I think is so interesting is being around the show for as long as I have, you realize that as much as it's about Alexander Hamilton, it's actually about this team as well. Because it's just, the show is just about the process of creation.
So the song, for example, the story of Tonight, where it's the camaraderie of these young men who have this sense that they're working on something, the America Project, that people will talk about one day. This was Lin. This was Tommy.
This is everyone.
All of them working on Hamilton all these years. This was them in a bar in Soho saying they're going to tell the story one day of how we worked on this.
Absolutely. You can see it. And when they come and talk, when they come and give notes to you, you see it. You're like, oh my God, this is you. This show is you. And that's what's beautiful is they've found a way to make the personal universal, right? All of a sudden, this story that's very personal to them has become something that impacts, millions of people.
So Lin says, I saw this in an interview. Didn't tell me this personally on the phone earlier, but he says that he liked the Aaron Burr role more. That when he was working on, the final touches of we got to go live. Which character should I be? I wrote this. I get to decide.
Yeah.
He was like, I like Aaron Burr. Aaron Burr's got the best musical pieces. So the Aaron Burr role won the Tony.
Yep.
And so you got what is the best role in some people's eyes and the role with the most pressure on it, because you have to. What I loved about watching you perform in Orlando is that you have to embody the essence of what it's like to succeed. The American success story is Hamilton in a sense. Aaron Burr represents the American story of failure on the grandest stage. So you had to embody that in every movement, in every song. Is there pressure when you have to do that?
It's not pressure. It's I think when I had an acting teacher once who told me when I got to like our final, in acting school, generally what happens is you spend 2-3 years and you go to. I went to NYU, so it was a different. You'd study at different acting studios, and then you have your final presentation for your teachers, and they give you advice or tell you how tell you what to work on for the future. And acting is a process that will never be over. You will never stop learning your craft of acting because there's always something else to learn. But my teacher, I will never forget, he said to me, he was like, "Hey, so you're going to be a great actor. I want you to know that. But I also want you to know that eventually this is going to cost you something. What you do costs." And playing Aaron Burr, playing Hamilton too, but definitely playing Burr, you come face to face with the cost of all this, because truth of the matter is I spend 3 hours a day plumbing the most insecure depths of my soul and like putting that out for the people. And like it's not like a big dramatic thing. It just means my cool down coming off of work at the end of the day has to be really specific and really protective of myself. You learn very quickly how to love yourself. You have to.
Yeah, the courage of the show is the Aaron Burr character. In look at all he contributed to America. Yeah. But then ultimately his own humanity, his own insecurities, his own flaws ruined him.
Yes.
And so you were preparing for the role of Aaron Burr. You study his history. You read all about him. What are your thoughts on Aaron Burr, the person? You play the character, but what's the difference in your mind in the Aaron Burr character in Hamilton and the Aaron Burr founding father?
Aaron Burr, the person, is very. It's interesting because they took a lot of liberties to not right. The story that you see on stage is for the most part accurate, but there's definitely a lot of liberties, especially with Burr, because Burr wasn't really involved in Hamilton's life prior to the election of 1800. What they do really make a point of is, yes, he was absolutely that opportunist. He was absolutely that person that was like, okay, politically at least, I'm going to wait and see what happens first before diving in. However, there's stories about how his bravery on the battlefield. I mean, this guy, he was a soldier. He was a good soldier. It's not like he wasn't doing anything. Like, he really made some things happen. So, I think that my opinion of Aaron Burr is, I think he was human. I think he was a really human person. And I think that, you look at what happened after he killed Hamilton. His life was in ruins. It was over.
There's no coming back
from that. There was no coming back. You shot this man.
Do you think he knew that? Of course, we're psychoanalyzing someone who died hundreds of years ago. Do you think he knew when he shot Hamilton and killed him that his life was over, in essence?
I think that because he fled. He fled. I think he knew that he had done something crazy. I think that's what's so fascinating, right? And that's what the show deals with too, is duels were common.
Yeah.
This was, and again, it was commonplace to walk away from a duel, but the fact that you would even put your life on the line like that over a thing of honor, right? Yeah, like, you're going to kill this man and it's going to have repercussions. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I always think about, like, because, we do it in our show, it's conflated, right? The letters that they sent back and forth take place over a song. Mm-hmm. But it took longer than that. It's like you didn't want to stop and think at any point before you got to this point. But that was the culture and that was the demand, at that time.
Yep. So for those that don't know your history, and I'm not an expert at all, but Aaron Burr runs for governor of New York.
The one that screwed him was he ran for president.
Ran for president.
Yeah.
But he and Hamilton had some history where he had multiple run-ins where Hamilton opposed him politically.
Yes.
He ran for president, as chronicled in the musical.
Yeah.
Hamilton opposes him, has a big part of him losing.
Yeah.
And so maybe Aaron Burr got to a tipping point. He's like, man, I'm going to go gangsta on this guy.
And I think that's pretty much what happened. And I think it's interesting because you read one of the most fascinating things that's ever happened to me is to get the chance to actually read these letters.
So you've had a chance to read the literal letters.
It's pretty
the actual version of these letters. How in the world does that happen,
bro? So I had a dear friend of mine who I write as well, and a friend of mine who I was going to write was commissioned to write a project for, who was a huge fan of the show, came to the show one day, and came with a suitcase, and he was like, and this man he has had a very successful life, and he was like, hey, come here, I want to show you something, and opened up his suitcase, and he had purchased at an auction a couple of these letters.
That's insane.
It was insane, and there's actually a picture on if you search back, it's like me and Michael Lavoie, who was the Hamilton on Broadway at the time.
Now are these in frames, and
these were in like plastic, and I had to put on gloves, like it was whole thing, but to see these things and just be like, oh my God, like you see these letters, and it was they were, first of all, it gives you some, in a strange way, it gives you some comfort because these guys were rude. Like they were rude. Like we think of these founding fathers. I think we think these founding fathers as the best of us. But like
in the letters, they were just going at each other.
They were just guys who were mad.
Okay.
And that's kind of what's crazy about it is it had so much to do with ego, and so much to do with honor, what they considered honor. So it was like, it was very strange. It was very strange.
Now, what's a letter from Hamilton to Burr or Burr to Hamilton cost? Like, what are you picking that up at your local auction for?
Did not ask,
at
but
this point,
I'm imagining.
Now, if you owned those letters before the show, became big, before Hamilton, Lin-Manuel Miranda put that out there, that's quite an up you had there.
Oh yeah, you got some money now.
You got some cash.
And
still in good condition, these letters?
You can see, it's all there. It's all there.
You sit there and read
word. Just read it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So what do you write? What do you like to write?
Dude, I write. So I started as a spoken word artist back in Boston, and from that I started writing plays. And what's been kind of crazy is as the platform that Hamilton has provided, the interest in what I write has grown, and that has been cool because one of my producers on my plays always makes the joke with me like, dude, you'd be just happy writing these things and performing with your friends in the garage. And I'd be like, yeah. Like it was never about getting these things anywhere. It was just about, I think writing is such a personal thing. It's such a personal expression of who you are. So when you write, again, this is just like with Lynn, this is like your journal. It's like your diary. But we just had a lab of one of my shows, Whiskeyland. My God, it was back in December. Oh no, it was October. It's October. And it was amazing. This is like at this point it's been going on 5 years now, and it's just amazing to see these words that you've worked, you literally spend all night on, just being, shouted out, spoken out. It's kind of incredible. Whiskeyland.
All right, so this is a spoken word performance.
No, Whiskeyland is actually a rock show. It's actually a rock musical.
Yeah, because you had mentioned before coming on that you are not necessarily a hip hop guy. You can appreciate it, but you're a rock and roll guy.
I have tickets to a Fleetwood Mac concert tonight.
Nice.
Oh yeah,
Fleetwood Mac.
Very excited. Very excited. But yeah, that's how I grew up. I grew up, it was like I said, it was the Stones, it was Green Day. I got into the pop punk phase. Like it wasn't a phase, but because here's the thing, that sound is it's such a specific sound, but I do like it. I really do like it. Like Blink-182. I dabbled in Good Charlotte for a second, but I think everyone did, and then we were all just kind of like, Good Charlotte.
So you're a rock and roll guy.
I'm a rock and roll man, which is why I laugh whenever people are like, "You're in Hamilton." I'm like, yeah.
All right, who's the greatest rock and roll band of all time?
The Who.
The Who. Okay.
The
You're
Who.
not going to go with the Stones.
I'm not going to go with
and
the
you're
Stones.
not going to go with the traditional Beatles.
No, I'm not. I think The Who, because in Pete Townsend you had somebody who was, again, I respond to the personal. I respond, and like if you look at Quadrophenia and if you look at Tommy, you're literally talking about a man putting his life out there in an album, and not even answering any questions with it, but just saying, here's my trauma, and I just musicalized it for you, and like go. And every time I was literally just listening to Love Reign Over Me last night in my cool down from the show, and it was just like, good Lord, man, like you really went there. You did some things. Yeah, there's nothing like that sound to me.
So you grew up listening to rock and roll. Now, is this Liz your mom?
Yep.
So I have something funny to tell you.
Uh-oh.
We're preparing for the show, and I go on and I start Googling you.
Yeah.
Your Google, when your photo comes up,
Liz Walker's son.
it says Nick Walker.
Yeah.
Liz Walker's son.
Absolutely.
So tell me about Liz Walker. Your mom
bro.
Must be a baller in Boston.
She was the first black news anchor in New England, primetime news anchor. She's now a minister.
I saw that.
She has had, I mean, literally, my mom is my hero. She has had quite a life and done a great many things. Built a school in Sudan. Countless charity work, trauma work. I mean, she's the real deal. It's so funny because to talk about my rock and roll, my love of rock and roll. She did not love rock and roll, there you go. She did not love rock and roll, and so she not say she didn't love it, but she was trying to make sure like I got into all music. She was like, so listen to this, listen to that, And that was the thing that I love about my mom the most was I think we knew from a very early age that I wanted to be a storyteller, but she was the one who was like, please be well-rounded. Please don't just know about yourself. Please know about the world. Because that's what she's done. I think the biggest thing that I'd say about my mom is that my mom is someone for whom service and selflessness are priority number one. Giving of yourself and serving your community is baseline for her. That's like, and to the point where I'm like right now she's on sabbatical. She's like actually somewhere in Florida. And I'm so happy because I'm like, if anybody asks her to do anything in Boston, she will say yes. Because that's my mom. And I'm just like, I love that right now you're just saying no. Like you're just with yourself. Because she has given everything of herself.
So is your mom, is that the biggest influence on your life?
I would absolutely. It comes in like, it's so funny, because you don't even think about how your parents influence you, but then you get to a certain age and you look back and you're like, wow, yeah, it's been my mom.
So mom's a news anchor. And then now, even back then she was probably in the ministry. Faith was important to her in some way.
Here's what's crazy. So we knew that her father was a minister as well, back in Little Rock, Arkansas. When the tour went through Salt Lake City, me and Joseph, who played Hamilton, got hit up by the Mormon Church, and they just as out of the kindness of their hearts, they just wanted they have their family history library, so they were like, we would love to look up your ancestry.
Wow.
Found out she is one in a line of like 2 or 3. Like her great grandfather was a minister. Wow. His father was like it's gone back. So and I actually have an article from I think it was like 1864 talking about her great grandfather Augustus Trotter, who had a church in Yazoo County, Mississippi. Yeah, so it's like it goes deep.
Mississippi
Yazoo.
In 1864.
Big.
So that newspaper on that wall right there, the one in the corner, that Harper's Weekly.
Oh yeah.
That's the original Harper's Weekly from the week.
You are lying.
Miranda, take that off the wall real quick, if you don't mind, because if I get up, it'll pull the.
Oh my!
I want you to see that this is the original Harper's Weekly. If you pull it up, it'll come right off that wall. So simple. So this is.
Where did you get this?
I bought it. I just don't want to get up because
yeah.
But this is New York, February 18th, 1865. It's the actual. So we turn it around. Look, there's actual Lincoln.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so this is, when they amended the Constitution.
Yeah.
And that's the actual scene from the movie Lincoln where it happens. And so that is the room where it happened,
this is
right
literally
there.
probably the heaviest thing. Like, just in terms of the
it's cool.
emotional weight
Here's
of that.
something just bizarre. So even back then, guns and tobacco
Of course.
were everywhere.
Of course.
But can I set this over here?
Dude.
I still want to get up. Alex,
Yeah.
everything all right, by the way? We sound okay? Everything good? Okay. So, yeah, Mississippi,
Yazoo County.
1 year after that.
1 year before that, 64.
1 year before that is so you have a legacy. I'll just tell you this.
Yeah.
I watch you play Aaron Burr in Hamilton. I can tell both you and Joseph, because you guys are just rock stars. You guys embody those characters in more ways than just acting. You are someone who comes from a line of people that have substance to them, and so that's your mom. That's the ministry. That's her caring for her community.
Absolutely.
So is that intimidating to grow up in a home where your mom is sticking with the theme here? Philip Hamilton grows up, and Alexander Hamilton is the dad, and the pressure, opportunities there, but it's also pressure in a way that probably led to Philip's demise.
Well, and you have to understand too, my birth was a thing because when I was born, right, speaking completely candidly, my mom was a single mother, and this was the 80s. So this was not a time, especially for somebody that, was coming out as a role model for women, for black women. This was a time so there were protests at her news station. I literally have articles where people are like, how could she do this, blah, blah, and she's just trying to have a kid. And so what I love about my mother is that she has always stayed true to herself and always just done her thing. And so, was there pressure? No, because what she told me was I will say this, there was an understanding that I was like, she's like, I hope you do something great. And I know that whatever you do will be great. But it was never about you have to do this or you have to do that or you have to do that. It was, what do you want to do? And here's how we do it. I don't have any student debt. I'm not paying loans. That's my mother. Do you know what I mean? She literally said, just go. And that is a gift that I literally to this day, I don't know how to repay that. How do you, just by doing what I do, I guess. But it was huge.
Yep.
So no, it was never any pressure. She is a force. And so living
still to this day,
oh my God. And living in a house with a force, I think when you're that age is definitely, you have to navigate some things, you have to figure some things out. But I wouldn't have changed a second.
Now, what's it like growing up in a home with faith and religion, probably at a level that she had it? Was she someone who said, listen, faith's an important part of my life, but you do what you want? Or was she someone like, your ass going to be in church every Sunday, 8 a.m.?
Brought me to church. But I think, again, one of the things that she did, and even if it wasn't something she wanted to do, was to say, you need to know enough to know you have to find your own way.
Yeah.
You have to figure this out. I think one of the things that's hard for her, or that was hard for her at the time, my wife is an atheist. Complete, unabashed, and proud of it, and she would probably call herself a humanist, and my mom was immediately, I think, a little nervous about, well, how does that impact you with what you believe? And I was like, well, what I believe and what Sarah believes, the principles are the same in terms of the just human decency and treating everybody equally and being kind. That is what, the source might be different. Might be very different, but it really hasn't been an issue for us, and I think that it took her a second, and I'm sure it still works through it, But I think that's just human. I don't think that's a bad thing.
Yeah, faith is such a interesting topic nowadays because, probably in the 80s, faith in 90s was more prolific in America, in our country.
Yeah.
Now, faith is is something that's almost taboo to talk about.
Yeah.
It's kind of strange.
Yeah.
So, but it's interesting because faith, even whether or not you share the exact same faith as your mom today, it had this incredible force in your life.
Absolutely.
You see it in the man that you've become.
Yeah.
So what do you think about, it's kind of an odd question,
Yeah,
what do you think about how almost polarizing faith has become in our society?
Well, I think
softball question, easy one.
Right, here we go.
Solve religion in America,
we're in.
You know?
Here's what I will say. Because I will use my own experiences. When I first started dating my now wife, I knew right away that if I got in this relationship, this was going to be it. Like, it was like, okay, this is. And she said, I mean, I'll never forget. She was like, "Listen, if you mess this up, you would be an idiot." I was like, "Yep, that tells me everything." But when I learned what her beliefs were, it definitely was like, oh my God. And then I realized, because I'm a huge proponent of therapy. I'm a huge proponent of therapy. I think everyone should have someone to talk to, just to get all this stuff out of your head. And through journaling and through all my stuff, I was just like, my animosity towards, or my defensiveness about what she believes has little to do with what she actually believes and more to do with what her opinion of me is. What does that mean for me? Okay, so do you think I'm dumb? Do you think I'm ignorant because I believe in God? And she doesn't, because she's with me. So I think that in terms of the polarization of anything, I think that what ends up happening is somebody says who they are, and then all of a sudden you have to become affected by it. Because, well, but it's about me, but it has nothing to do with you.
Yeah, we can't sometimes get along with differing beliefs, because what you're saying is we become insecure about our own beliefs.
Yes.
So yeah, my background, I did not grow up religious at all. I grew up with two ex-hippies who didn't raise me in any religion. I had that grandmother that would like pull me in the back room, be like, "Watch this guy on TV. He's going to tell you how to live a perfect life." So I then, when I got out of high school, found faith. But now faith is incredibly important to me.
Yeah.
And very non-traditional at the same time. But I'll tell you, it's that same challenge in society, where how do you find a way to be comfortable with what you believe, but allow others to be who they are, and try to look past those barriers to building, a real relationship with someone. I think that's tough. We live in a very polarized world. I don't know if you've noticed, but there's like political stuff going on.
I have in fact noticed some
you've been
weird
busy.
things. Yeah, it's a whole thing.
But I think you are right on. You gotta be okay with you.
Yes.
Enough to be okay with someone who's different than you.
It's it's my favorite thing is the airplane metaphor. When you go on the airplane and the stewardess, the flight attendant's like, make sure you secure your own oxygen mask before you help the child next to you. And that really is the key. Deal with yourself before you worry about anything. Are you good? Because if you're good, then they can believe whatever they want to do, because it's not you.
So your mom, Liz Walker. Again, if you haven't seen it, Google Nick Walker right now. If you're watching this on TV, if you're watching on iTunes or YouTube Live,
right there.
It's his photo, and it says Liz Walker's son. So immediately I'm like, all right, his mom must have been a baller.
Yep.
But if I think of anything faith put in me, and I think maybe what Liz put in you is, listen, you got a God and a mama who love you just as you are.
That's it.
And loves you enough that it's okay to let other people around you who don't think like you, who don't act like you, who don't have the same beliefs as you. And so I think I can see that in your mom. And how does she, what is she doing now? She's still just running that church?
So she's running that church. She's writing a book. I mean, she's doing everything. She's
wait, is she the head of the church?
Yes.
Wait, so your mom is the head of a Presbyterian church in Boston?
Presbyterian.
It's amazing.
Oh, she's.
Did you get some more riots for that when it first happened?
Dude, no. It was, I think what was amazing about it was, at that point, she had such a name in New England, that people were very excited about it. People were like, let's go. They welcomed her in, and I mean, there's not a day that goes by that I'm not proud of what she's done. So she's doing that. She works. She's actually working with the Sox. She is part of their community outreach.
Okay.
So she's always doing something. Like, there's always something going on. And that's my mom.
So you grew up in Boston.
Grew up in Boston.
So huge Red Sox fan, huge Patriots fan.
Here's what I'm gonna say. So what's so funny? So my wife is from the Bronx, right? Exactly. But what's funny is neither of us like, if you're from New York and you grow up in New York, the Yankees is your team. If you're from Boston, you grow up in Boston, the Sox are your team. Am I like gonna kill someone if the Sox don't win? No, like I don't even follow it that closely. But it's just my team.
It's part of being from Boston.
Yeah, that's your culture. But like I don't care. Like it's fine. It's you follow who you want to do what you got to do. But yeah, I mean one of the great advantages of this job has been the people I've met, and one of my favorite things has been the times that now this guy who's my friend Adam is the chief marketing officer for the Sox, and so I remember he gave me a tour of Fenway, and I hadn't been in Fenway in 10 years. And just to be back in that stadium, it was just like, because it was right down the street growing up.
He took you down in the field?
Oh, yeah. Like the whole thing. It was just like, this is home. This is home, man. And Boston, even the plays I write, like, it's very much like, I can't escape Boston. Like, Boston is, that city is my heart. You know what I mean? It shaped me in a lot of ways. And so you can't ever let go of that. Yeah.
I think Hamilton, the musical, and Tom Brady have a lot in common, and the Patriots have a lot in common.
I could see that.
In as much as Hamilton, has there ever been anything more successful ever in the history of Broadway?
Not really.
I mean, not even close. Is there a close second?
Not a close. Well, I mean, I guess Wicked or Les Mis, but like
you're being nice, but I think Hamilton.
Yeah.
Well, it went places in culture.
Yes.
I mean, you can.
I will agree with that. Yeah.
Because I think what you're saying is, Wicked sold out a bunch of shows.
Yeah.
Hamilton sold, but Hamilton went to places where people like me, who had no part in Broadway, were like, "What's going on with this show?"
Yes.
And who are these actors? And what's this all about? So it kind of transcended music, Broadway theater, to pop culture, to influence all aspects of society.
Yeah.
Sometimes success has a way of doing that, and I think the Patriots, Tom Brady, whether you like football or not, you see Tom Brady Super Bowl after Super Bowl. But when you have that kind of success, it's very easy, I think, for you to get criticism. And why do you think people hate on success in our society? Hamilton success, football success.
That's a great question.
Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Elon's a little wild, but why do we hate on successful people?
But I think it goes back to what you were saying, right? It brings up your own insecurities. What did they do? What formula did they figure out that you couldn't figure out? What did they do that made them so good at what they do, and you're sitting here doing what you do? And all of a sudden, you're putting yourself in relief against a person, right? And you're saying, oh, well, I can't, they can't, I have to, where's mine? I think that's what success, I think that's when you hate on success, is you're just like, well, what does that mean for me? But it's, again, there's, I hate going to Hamilton for life lessons, but there's so many life lessons in Hamilton. But the last line of my character, he said, the world is wide. And what's crazy about that is that's literally those were his last words. Aaron Burr.
But those were literally Aaron Burr's last words.
Those were literally some of his recorded last words. Was the world
of his life before he died.
The world was wide enough for both of us. Oh, isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy?
Is so amazing. A man that at the end of his life still had Hamilton and the mistakes he made in his mind. Kind of coming back to what we were talking about earlier, there's this choice you have to make when you're presented with the success of someone else.
Yes.
There's this choice where you have to say to yourself, did this person achieve success at the expense of me? Did this person receive some luck or divine intervention that I didn't receive? Or do you say, there's something I can learn from Hamilton, from Tom Brady, I hate to keep bringing Tom Brady up, from a successful sports franchise, from a successful business owner. if you flip it, I think that's that switch where you can either become jealous or become a student of something you don't know to make you successful.
You ever read, oh my God, Letters to a Young Poet?
I've not.
It's a book, old book. Raina Marie Rilke wrote it. It was letters that this poet was sending back and forth to a German soldier, I believe, I believe it was the First World War. And one of my favorite quotes from that is, because this poet is just giving this young soldier all this advice, and he says, "Resolve to always be beginning, always be a beginner." And it's the best advice I've ever heard, ever, because it's the truth. If you are just a student of life, if you're just saying, assume that I know nothing, right? Perfect example. One of the, there's right now, there's 6 companies at Hamilton. I said 5, but there's 6. And one of the guys who was playing Burr is no longer playing Burr, was my friend Nick Chris. Now, Nick Chris is an amazing performer. He is tall, 6'2", like just awesome dude, also from Boston. And when we first got out into the theater world, he would book something, I would book something, he would book something, I would book something. And we were like, in my mind, I had this guy, I was like, oh my God, I hate that dude. Because he's always getting, like, I would get so close to a job and then be like, who got it? And he'd like, Nick Chris, and be like, God, But then, finally, I think it was like we did Motown together, and I was like, let me just talk to this dude and see who he is. And he's just the nicest guy. And he's a friend now. And, like, I love the dude. And, like, I get some jobs, he gets some jobs. But, like, I wouldn't have had this friendship if I just let my jealousy take over from just talking to the guy.
Yeah, the world is wide enough for
everyone.
His name's Nick?
Nick.
For 2 Nicks.
For 2 Nicks.
For Nick with a N-I-C-K and Nick with an N-I-K.
Oh, yeah.
I also find that jealousy when someone else is successful also comes from this belief that for some people it just happens.
Yes.
Like Lin-Manuel Miranda, that I love hearing, because I didn't know these stories. I've just become a big fan, honestly, of Hamilton in the last few weeks as I first saw the production, and I've got a chance to meet some of the great actors a part of it. But I am so happy to hear the journey of Hamilton, because it wasn't an overnight success story. It wasn't Lin-Manuel Miranda and his team threw something together and 3 weeks later they're at the White House. This was a passion project that took brains, creativity, courage, but just hard work and a grind that set him apart from other people. Hamilton's life as a founding father was not an overnight success story, but the story of Hamilton, the production, are folks who took success away from failure. Folks who said, I'm going to work as hard as it takes to see what I believe in happen. I think a lot of folks, Nick, they've never seen that before. And so their jealousy, I think, comes from this idea that some people just get lucky, some people just are fortunate, some people have it handed to them, and other people who don't have success, we didn't get that fortune. If you are around consistently the most successful people, the Lin-Manuel Mirandas, the Tom Bradys, the guy, your mom, you see the story over and over again of people who work their tail off for what they believe, people who, like in Hamilton, there's that line that says, why do you write like you're running out of time? To me, that was Lin-Manuel Miranda and his team, right? Is that them? They're working on productions. But when you know that kind of hard work and you see someone successful, you love that because they embody something that I can emulate that myself.
Absolutely.
So I think that's where a lot of the haterism comes in.
Yes, and it's also, but I just want to say too, I think one of the beautiful things about that, is that you do the work because you know that it's what drives you. You're not doing the work to get to any place. I think that's the other difference, right? You look at these things. My favorite thing about oh my God, I'm a huge movie buff, so you have to forgive me for all my movie references. But did you ever seen The Prestige? It's a Christopher Nolan film.
Yes.
So
that was one of his first movies.
It was right after.
Has Christopher Nolan ever made a bad movie? No,
because he takes his time with it. He's very smart.
Amazing.
He's one of my favorites. But he in The Prestige, it's when Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale go to see that the Asian American magician when they're both young and starting out, and they're trying to figure out how he does this trick where this guy basically hobbles on stage, stands in front of a table, puts a tablecloth in front of the table, takes it off, and there's a massive fish bowl, and then and like they don't know where it came from. And then Christian Bale sees him leaving the theater the next day, and he's hobbling, and Hugh Jackman and him are trying to figure out how they did this. How did this do it? And Christian Bale's like, wait, that's the trick. The trick is he literally spends his life making people think that he's hobbled because he's carrying the bowl in between his legs. And so that's how he gets it on the table. That's how it just appears out of nowhere. But the sacrifice, it's all about that sacrifice of just making people believe that you are this old hobbly man. That to me is the creative process. It's what people don't see. It's not the performance. It's 3 hours, right? But to do the performance, the time in the gym, the memorization, the craft work, to write this piece. That's the work that got you there. And that's the work that you're doing not because of some glory, because it's not guaranteed. You put millions of dollars in this thing, it could still fail, but you're just doing it because you believe in it.
The story of Alexander Hamilton, the founding father, was him and his friends and those he worked with who put the work and the sacrifice in to start a nation that we all now at times even take for granted what we have.
And rolled the dice. You know, one of my favorite things about the show, if you look at our set, did you ever read anything about what our set is?
I did not.
So so one of the beautiful things about our set is it kind of looks like a construction site, right? It's an unfinished building. That's the idea behind the set. It's work. There's piles of bricks over here. There's scaffolding everywhere. There's towers that aren't quite completed yet. That's what they were doing. They literally were building something that like, and the idea is like, the idea for our set designer, he often talks about how this would be whatever the building is that's being built, this was the ground floor. This wasn't even like the actual building. This was just the foundation of the building, right? So they're not even going to see what the actual building is. It's just the first floor of this building.
What is a legacy? Like a legacy, I won't get this right, is planting seeds in a garden you'll never see.
Yeah, you got it right.
Again, I see now, in talking to you, this incredible contrast of these founding fathers and Lin-Manuel and his team kind of saying to the world around them, this country came from people who worked and sacrificed to now, give us this great nation. But your life can be that as well if you're willing to sacrifice and work and plant seeds and write like it's going out of time or sing or do your sport. Is that kind of the motivation of Hamilton?
Exactly. And I think actually also the biggest motivation too is to remember that life is short. Because I think that the biggest, right, the difference between Hamilton and Burr, right, both of these men start the show at a breakneck speed, and even though Burr is waiting for it, right, it's a song he sings, they're both people who are working to build something. But then what happens to Hamilton in the second act? His son dies. And all of a sudden, he has to realize, okay, there are actually things that are important in life. And what I think that Hamilton, there's a Shakespearean saying that as soon as a character gets the lesson they're supposed to learn, they die. And the concept of our show, right, as soon as Hamilton learns that, yes, you can build and build and build, but you also have to know the important that your daughters, the things in life that are like important, you got to balance, right? So you have your time for work, but there's also time to take a break. There's also time to just be. It all comes down to is just about the gift that my wife gave me that I will, my mom gave me a gift, my wife gave me a gift, and that gift was an understanding that like, my God, there will always be more work to do. Always. So, like, if you get a chance to just sit and enjoy a glass of wine, enjoy that glass of wine.
She's Eliza. She's Eliza in you.
Oh, absolutely. She is the one who said, "Yo, stop." Just because my mind was always racing. My mind was always like 10 steps ahead, and she was like, "No, just be here."
Well, as men, and Alex telling me we got to wrap up in just a few minutes. I will say, as men, I think we sometimes, I don't know why this is, but we can fall into that Hamilton trap of feeling like we are judged by our accomplishments.
Yes.
I know it can happen to women as well, but as I think men are hardwired in a way in their biology to see their self-esteem through what they write, through their positions.
Yes.
Through, am I going to make it as Aaron Burr in the next show? and it's a curse that we have.
Yes.
It helps drive our species forward, and it helps us accomplish things that benefit those around us. But if we're not careful, I think one of the parts of Hamilton, the story of Alexander Hamilton as told by Lin-Manuel Miranda and the other team members, is, hey, listen, this man was one of the founders of America, but look at the price at times he paid when his motives were not for those outside of him, but for himself. The moments where Hamilton gave into his insecurities, where he gave into that voice that said, if you don't make yourself successful or have a position, you're not going to be anybody. Those were the moments where he had the greatest failures.
Yes.
And the moments when he remembered where he was from.
Yes.
And he remembered what he could do that history would remember him. That's what made him great. So that's what your wife's saying too. She's saying, Nick, there's always going to be another stage.
Always.
But who you are isn't defined by what's on that stage.
No,
see, that's your mom. You and your Stacy.
Oh, it's
Liz and Stacy have a lot more than in common.
Well, and it's oh my God, I've realized that over the years.
Stacy is your mom.
Oh yeah, no, my wife is definitely my mother. Yeah, Sarah. Yeah, she is my It's crazy, but that's what happens, man.
All right, I'm gonna get you out of here, but I just want I want to ask you two more things. Please. So one, what are the Hamilton Easter eggs? I'm gonna see the ones that, because I haven't listened to it. I've only listened to the soundtrack a handful of times. I've seen the show twice. So here are the ones I picked up on. Yep. And I didn't Google this or anything.
Yeah.
So I'm only 19, but my mind is older. That's Jay-Z, right?
Obviously, yeah.
That's from the Black Album.
Yeah.
Hold on, I had a few written. So what are the other Easter eggs?
You don't know, now you know.
Okay, yes.
President.
Yeah.
I mean, there's musical theater Easter eggs. There's you've got to be like the thing that Burr says in the tavern scene, which is one of the first scenes right before during my shot. He says, Genie says, lower your voices, keep out of trouble, and you double the choices. I'm with you, but the situation is fraught. You've got to be carefully taught. If you talk, you're going to get shot. You've got to be carefully taught is a song from South Pacific.
Okay.
Hamilton in Adams' administration says, he says, sit down, John, you fat mother beep.
Yeah.
And sit down, John is the first line of 1776 musical. There's like, I mean,
it's full of Easter eggs.
It goes on, and we could spend an hour.
Okay.
It's crazy.
So my daughter ribbed me.
Yeah.
My daughter Mary. She's so sweet. To have you do 2 lines, if you're allowed. She wanted to hear you do the first line of the production in the first song, Alexander Hamilton, and she wanted to hear you do. She loves the "It Must Be Nice." It must, because here's what's cool about that song.
Yeah.
I can't sing, but I definitely grew up around people who are musical. There's something in all of the songs and all the productions. There's these little nuances to the music that make it so hard.
Yeah.
Like if you know music, it seems like to the average person, it must be nice, must be nice. But that song is, it must be nice. It must be nice. Oh my gosh, that's so hard.
Crazy.
So what are the hardest licks for Aaron Burr to hit? And I want to hear you do them like right off the cuff.
And here's what sucks. I am not allowed to do them.
I didn't think you were. That's so funny.
I'm not allowed to do them. I can talk about them, but I can't do them.
I didn't think you would be allowed to sing any of it. Because that's a Pandora's box. Are you doing a performance? Who's getting paid for it?
Exactly. So. Once I leave the show, I can.
Okay.
But while I'm still in the show, I can't, sadly. But I will say
what are the hardest parts to sing?
Okay, so first of all, not even singing, but just you talk about the memorization.
Okay.
All of Aaron Burr's narrations start with that question. And they are slight variations. How does a bastard, orphan, son of a whore? That's the first one. And then it's, how does a bastard, orphan, son of a whore go on? And that's the second one. And then it's, how does a ragtag volunteer? They're all variations on the same thing.
So that can be tricky.
I have said the first one way back in the 5th one. Like I've done all the mistakes you could ever think of. Wait for It that's actually not that hard of a song. It's because it's like a Drake beat. It's like real. It's supposed to be real, like easy. And that Wait for It, if you don't know, is Aaron Burr's one of his big songs.
Yeah, it's really the story of. How do I say? It's what it appears to be Aaron Burr's big flaw.
Yes,
that he has no courage other than the wrong courage at the wrong time.
Yeah.
Well, hold on, because I got to get you out of here, but I have to ask this.
No, please.
So there's a moment I had a Hamilton argument with someone where it's the final scene, the duel between Hamilton and Aaron Burr.
Yeah.
And Aaron Burr and Hamilton's character turn towards each other, and you hear Aaron Burr go, "Wait!" Is that a reference to "Wait for It," or does that just happen to be there?
No, it's I'll tell. I mean,
Does my question make sense?
Your question absolutely makes sense.
I thought it was a reference to now this is the moment where Aaron Burr's whole life has come to a head, and once again it's wait.
I'm about to blow your mind.
Okay.
So the first. Okay, I'll try to explain it like this. Okay, yes, but indirectly.
Okay. Because
of a few things. So if we consider that the characters, right, in musical theater, there's a term called I want songs. Every character, your lead characters generally get an I want song. It tells the audience what they are after in the course of the show. Hamilton's would be my shot. He literally states his mission statement, right? Yeah. I'm not throwing away my shot. Now, that is... So when Burr meets Hamilton, the first thing he really hears him declare is, "I'm not throwing away my shot." Then you get to Burr's thing, which is "Wait for it," right? He literally has a song about how he believes that the best thing to do is in any given situation, wait, hold back, and see what the situation is. You get to the final duel. Now, the final duel is told through Burr's perspective for the most part, and then you cut to Hamilton has a monologue when the bullet slows down, right? Once I shoot out, the bullet slows down and we hear Hamilton's inner thoughts. But Burr's whole song is about justifying. He is literally doing what he says. He's like, okay, here's what I know. I know this guy's an amazing marksman. I know I'm a terrible marksman. I know that he has his glasses on, which means he's probably aiming to shoot. He's fiddling with his trigger. Everything this man is doing is telling me he's going to shoot, so I have to shoot. And also, on top of everything, I know that the first thing I learned about this man was I'm not throwing away my shot.
Gotcha.
And in that one moment, he throws away his shot. So the weight is a reference, but it's more like he was wrong. His big calculation was wrong.
He was wrong about Hamilton, and it defined his life, but he was wrong because of his insecurities, and his insecurities ultimately put him on the outside looking in. Interestingly enough, I heard someone say that Hamilton knew some believe Hamilton knew he would die in that duel, and that in essence what we see now, Hamilton being maybe the most famous founding father other than George Washington in 2019, maybe Hamilton knew that finally throwing away his shot, because he was out of politics at that point.
We'll get him the legacy.
Maybe he could have redeemed himself after the letter came out about his affair.
Yeah.
But his legacy was, he found his legacy by never throwing away his shot, but he was made immortal by throwing it away.
And here's an even deeper
Freaky,
one.
right?
Here's what's even freakier. The first question Aaron Burr asks is, how does a bastard orphan, blah, 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 become a hero and a scholar? How does this nothing become a legend? You kill him. You are the answer to your own question. So isn't it crazy? Oh no, this thing we can literally go for days.
In essence, Aaron Burr's failure made Aaron Burr the person that now is famous. That's
it's crazy.
That's the Matrix right there, bro.
Oh, dude, the whole thing is the Matrix. Every day I'm just like, oh God, there's just more. There's more I have to learn and do, and it's crazy.
So Nick Walker, you can find him. What's your social media?
So it's all over. It's Nicky Walks. So NIKKYWALKS.
And we'll put all your Twitter, Instagram, all that in the show. Nick Walker, who is playing Aaron Burr right now around America. Check him out. Follow him on social media. Again, if you missed part of this show because it's only 28 minutes and 30 seconds, that's because the entire interview is on YouTube Live and on iTunes, Apple iTunes. But Nick, thanks for coming in, man.
No,
you are the man.
No, dude, it's a pleasure.
We loved having you in. Thank you so much. We see Hamilton. Check it out if you haven't. It is the bomb, and we'll see you soon. Thank you. We're out.
Peace.